An update on several AEW stars that may be unhappy and requesting their release from the company. Kyle O'Reilly announces he has undergoing major neck surgery. Tony Khan has several comments ahead of All Out this weekend, including on the rift between Colt Cabana and CM Punk. Steele apologizes for dropping an F-bomb on Dynamite. All this and more in today's AEW news. Hey guys, welcome back to Wrestling News 365. Hope everyone is doing very well. As always, there are plenty of news stories to get into in the world of All Elite Wrestling, especially with just 48 hours to go until All Out, one of the biggest shows on the AEW calendar. So let's get straight into this big story regarding several stars possibly requesting their release. The one that's really taken the headlines, and it's been kind of divisive whether or not it's true, or maybe there's elements of truth to it, is Malakai Black possibly requesting his release from the company. Now, of course, this comes after rumors of Bobby Fish now being a free agent, Miro possibly being unhappy. So we're going to do our very best to try and break down as much as we can here, because it is a really big story that, again, has really sort of swirled in the last 24, 48 hours or so. And I wanted to wait until we got more clarification on some of these rumors. Now, since Wednesday, there have been a lot of AEW rumors emerging from largely unsubstantiated accounts about a ton of releases or requests to be released from their AEW contract. Now, most of these rumors have been shot down, according to Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select, but in asking, they did learn that Bobby Fish was finished with All Elite Wrestling. That's essentially where that Bobby Fish story that we covered yesterday came from. It came from a lot of rumors about AEW stars being unhappy and requesting their release from the company. So when Sean Ross Sapp, when Fightful was asking around going, is it true that this person has requested their release? Is it true that that person is unhappy? Is it true that XYZ wants to leave the company? They did find out actually, oh, by the way, Bobby Fish isn't with the company anymore. He's a free agent. We'll touch on that in a second. Now, one of these unreliable reports on Wednesday was that Malakai Black had been released by AEW. Now, obviously, we know that's not the case because reps had quickly shot that rumor down to Fightful, and they said it's completely false and said that he had not been released. Later that evening, of course, Malakai Black was actually featured on Dynamite, and it was announced that he's booked for All Out in that trios match involving the House of Black, Miro, Sting, and Darby Allin. Ironically, you've got two people in there that reportedly aren't happy and might want their way out of the company. Now, Wrestling Inc.'s Raj Giri, who, of course, is a very reliable source, or certainly has broken big stories. Raj Giri's been in the space for over 20 plus years. Wrestling Inc., fantastic website, had tweeted and then deleted that Malakai Black had asked for his release and it wasn't granted. Now, Fightful are reporting, and Sean Ross Sapp is also reporting, that they had heard that rumor within the AEW roster that Malakai Black was unhappy and had been unhappy, but the reason why wasn't something that they could report first without confirming firsthand with Black themselves. So they had heard that rumor, but they couldn't confirm it or substantiate it with Malakai Black or people close to the situation. Now, there were outside sources that indicated Black had indeed asked for his release, but they've not been able to confirm that with the company. Again, these are outside sources or rumors suggesting that he had asked for his release, but AEW is not commenting on the matter. Largely, they probably won't. Now, AEW sources that they did speak to or were able to talk to have claimed that Black isn't happy and wasn't happy. However, they also claim that they believe things had been smoothed over to some degree, i.e. basically saying that, yeah, Malakai Black wasn't happy in the past, maybe not going as far to say he requested his release from the company, but stated that he wasn't happy, but things have been smoothed over to a certain extent. Now, in terms of Malakai Black's immediate future with AEW, it would appear that he's not going anywhere because he signed a 5-year contract when he signed with AEW last year. Of course, he was released by WWE as part of those budget cuts last year. He was released just after he returned to WWE television on an episode of SmackDown on Fox. He attacked Big E. He was released just days later, and then 30 days later, because he didn't have a 90-day non-compete, he only had a 30-day non-compete, he appeared on the Road Rager edition of Dynamite attacking Cody Rhodes. Remember that last year? God, it feels like a million years ago. But when he signed with AEW, he signed a 5-year deal. He's got 4 years left. So if he's unhappy now, he's got plenty of time left on his deal. Now, another name that was listed by one of those less than reliable posters was that of former TNT champion Miro, who, as I mentioned, is in that trios match against the House of Black this coming Sunday at All Out, and a claim was that he had also asked for his release. This was also denied completely and repeatedly by sources who would be familiar with such a situation as just all untrue. So again, people close to or probably working for or inside the company, or maybe even Tony Khan himself, are denying that Miro has requested his release from the company. It's interesting that they're not doing the same with Malakai Black, but they certainly are with Miro. Now, Miro actually re-signed with AEW late last year, which will keep him with the company until early 2026. Again, a 5-year contract he signed. Now, when he first signed with AEW in 2020, he actually signed a relatively short-term deal. It was about a 1-year deal. And Miro told Fightful earlier this year, actually, that he gave AEW a deal on his first contract and was angling for a huge money increase on his second contract, which Fightful are reporting actually did come to fruition. Again, they are the rumors regarding them two. Now, when it comes to Bobby Fish, who we spoke about yesterday, according to PW Insider, the Undisputed Elite member and former NXT Tag Team Champion's contract with AEW is officially expired. It actually expired just a couple of days ago on August 31st. Therefore, he is now officially a free agent. Now, there had previously been reports that Fish and the company couldn't come to terms, and they have been confirmed by the news that came out about yesterday or so regarding Bobby Fish now officially being a free agent. Now, it's curious, isn't it? Because Fish recently stated that he would go to war for WWE's current head of creative and talent relations, Paul Triple H Levesque, leading to speculation he might be the latest released talent to be welcomed back to the fold in WWE. Of course, he would join the likes of numerous NXT stars such as Karrion Kross, Hit Row, Dexter Lumis, and others who have returned to the company. So let's try and take this piece by piece here. Let's take it with Malakai Black. Malakai Black's probably the biggest name or the biggest story that gained a lot of traction last night regarding him possibly requesting his release. I can understand his frustration, honestly. This is a guy that in NXT, when he was featured in NXT under Triple H, was featured as the NXT champion, different character, dark character, felt like he could maybe be the next version of The Undertaker in WWE, which seems crazy to think now, but incredibly creative, fantastic worker in the ring. And for whatever reason on the main roster, there was a period of time where it felt like he possibly was going to be doing something on Monday Night Raw under Paul Heyman. Paul Heyman was a big fan when he was the executive director of Monday Night Raw. Didn't work out, and then again, he was taken off of television for ages. He had that thing where he turned heel. Remember that? When he turned heel in 2020 and he changed his look, his music changed, his entrance changed, he wore tights, all this kind of stuff. And then he got taken off of television. There were reports of him being unhappy with WWE and the way he was being featured and the creative and this, that, and the other. There was the issue with Zelina Vega at the time being let go by the company due to the Twitch stuff. I mean, this feels like a million years ago, but he was off TV for such a long period of time. Came back eventually after weeks of vignettes. The vignettes for his return last year were excellent as well for WWE. Telling this story about the Book of Black, I believe it was, of whatever it was, and tales of his father, and then he came back, different look, and attacked Big E and closed an episode of SmackDown on Fox, WWE's A show, and then he was released just days later because WWE was in chaos at the time. When isn't it in chaos? And when he arrived in AEW, it was exciting, to be honest. It was exciting because it was a feeling of, man, this guy was so creatively shackled in WWE, specifically the main roster, not so much in NXT, but he was so creatively shackled. He's got all of these great ideas. He's a great character wrestler and a great wrestler. He's going to do so much great stuff. Finally, we're going to see the best of Aleister Black, Malakai Black. And maybe we did initially with the Cody Rhodes stuff. That feud again felt bizarre because anything that kind of got caught up in the Codyverse at that time in AEW felt bizarre, and there was the sort of rivalry between Cody Rhodes and the fans about them wanting him to turn heel, and some people had hoped that Malakai Black facing off against Cody Rhodes would be a precursor to Cody Rhodes turning heel. It didn't happen, and it was odd. And then since then, I mean, people had hoped, with the House of Black, it's a good idea on paper, and Brody King and Buddy Matthews being involved is great, and Julia Hart, but they're not on TV a ton. Malakai Black is nowhere near the main event, nowhere near. I mean, there was a thought process of Malakai Black. Maybe he could have a world title feud. Has he even been in a couple of main events of Dynamite? Certainly, if anything, he feels less relevant now than he did a year ago. He feels less relevant than when he was in WWE. Certainly when he was in NXT as well. He just feels like he's doing not that much of substance, really. He doesn't really wrestle single matches anymore. He only really does tag team matches or 6-man tags. And I can understand his frustration because he must be thinking, man, I've got 4 years left of this contract here. And what am I doing? What am I doing in AEW rather? Nothing. And I'm sure that he looks on the other side and thinks, I had such a good working relationship with Triple H. I know for a fact, because WWE needs stars and they've got so much television time. If I was back in WWE right now, I'd probably be better off. Now, again, he's got 4 years left on his contract. Not a lot he can really do at this point. And I know that people will say, oh, when Mustafa Ali wanted his release by WWE, you said, oh, give it to him. You've got to keep the same energy. I suppose you do. But also, contracts are there for 4 years left, and he is being somewhat used on television, but he's not just being used the way that he wants. The Miro one, again, I can understand his frustration. He's also, all of these guys' frustration, whether it's Miro, whether it's Malakai Black, whether it's others, it's because their roster's too big. AEW's roster, AEW/Ring of Honor's roster is too big, and they don't have the television time to facilitate all of this. Rampage, it's not like being on Rampage as being on Dynamite. Being on Dark or Dark Elevation feels like a demotion. Ring of Honor, we don't know the status of it right now. If they get a show on TNT or they get a show on a network, maybe that does alleviate some of people's problems. But ultimately, AEW has a too big roster to satisfy all the people that are there, and it leads to people being frustrated or being unhappy with their TV time. And as I've mentioned before, this shouldn't be a surprise. There will always be, and there always will be going forward, and it'll be the same with WWE. There will always be a problem with people being unhappy that they're not being used properly. That's just how pro wrestling works. And I think we're going to get back to a point where people are going to start to have shorter contracts. I think that's probably the way that is going to work out in the end. But as far as Malakai Black, do I expect him to leave AEW? I mean, AEW doesn't really release people. Really. I mean, I guess maybe if they request it, it might be a little bit different. They tend to like to see their talent seeing out their contracts. Again, I don't expect Miro to go anywhere. He just recently re-signed. Malakai Black could be a little bit different. We'll have to wait and see. Bobby Fish, do I expect him to go back to WWE? Honestly, I'm not sure. I mean, no disrespect to him, but what is the value of Bobby Fish without Kyle O'Reilly, without Adam Cole at this stage of his career? And he is injury prone. What is the value? Can you see Bobby Fish on the main roster as a single star? I just can't. I can't. And we're going to get into Kyle O'Reilly in a second, but Kyle O'Reilly's not going to be around anytime soon. And I don't see the value, honestly. I don't, and that's just my opinion. But that isn't to say he goes back to WWE. Maybe he goes somewhere else. Maybe he goes to Impact Wrestling, or maybe he goes to MLW, or maybe he goes to NXT and works as a coach. I don't know. But I don't see Bobby Fish being the next name that's brought back to WWE, unless maybe they did something with Diamond Mine, with Roderick Strong. But again, NXT's in a different direction right now, so I don't really see that one either. Speaking of Kyle O'Reilly, some really actually unfortunate news about his injury status. Now, Kyle O'Reilly hasn't actually competed in AEW since June, but now the former NXT Tag Team Champion has provided a real serious update on his status and his injury problems at the moment. On Instagram, O'Reilly posted 2 stories. Now, the first was a picture of him laying in a hospital bed, noting that he was eating a spoon of peanut butter for his health. And the second post seemingly indicated that he'd undergone neck fusion surgery. Now, if that is the case, if Kyle O'Reilly has undergone neck fusion surgery, then this particular major surgery would mean that Kyle O'Reilly would be out of action indefinitely moving forward. Neck fusion surgery is no joke. There is a select few amount of people in pro wrestling history that have received neck fusion surgery, the likes of obviously Edge, Kurt Angle, Stone Cold Steve Austin, etc. And frankly, it's not good. It's not good. It's a career shortener. It's really a last resort a lot of times. Big E spoke about, obviously he broke his neck earlier this year, and it was actually a positive that he avoided neck fusion surgery. Now, we don't know which vertebrae or which sections of the neck that Kyle O'Reilly has had fused, but does it mean that he will never wrestle again? Honestly, it is a possibility. A neck fusion surgery means you're out of action for a year plus. If ever, you might never return. And I don't mean, and fingers crossed, obviously, he makes the best recovery that he can and he's wrestling again, but neck fusion surgery is no joke. And every single person that's got it will say it takes years off your career, and if you get to the point where you need it, you're on borrowed time anyway. So fingers crossed for Kyle O'Reilly, but now it all starts to make a bit more sense of maybe why Bobby Fish couldn't come to terms on a contract extension with AEW, because maybe AEW thought, in reality, actually, you know what? Yeah, we wanted to do the Elite versus the Undisputed Elite, but look at the situation. Kyle O'Reilly's just had neck surgery. He's out of action for a year plus. Adam Cole's injured. He's got a torn labrum and a concussion problem. Like, we're not doing that match. We are not doing it because Kyle O'Reilly's injured and Adam Cole, we don't know when he's going to return. So that match is on hiatus indefinitely. Do we then Bobby Fish's contract's coming up? Do we extend it? Probably not. Honestly, probably not, because we can't do the match we wanted to do for a year anyway. So really unfortunate news for Kyle O'Reilly, and again, fingers crossed he recovers soon. Tony Khan had his media call ahead of All Out the weekend. He also has done a few interviews, and he was asked in an interview with Forbes about Colt Cabana and the situation with him moving to Ring of Honor, and obviously his lack thereof of a relationship with AEW or former AEW World Champion CM Punk. This is what Tony Khan said, quote, "There was a misconception that was perpetrated unfairly that CM Punk had anything to do with me wanting to move Colt Cabana to the Ring of Honor roster when his contract came up. Punk had nothing to do with any of the contracts I picked up, whether I did or didn't. But in particular, I did pick up Colt Cabana's contract and gave him a similar contract to do different work." Now, Khan said he didn't feel that it was fair that got perpetrated. I also don't think that was fair to Punk. I mentioned Punk recently shot down a Colt Cabana chant this past Wednesday on Dynamite. Look, this is the thing. Tony Khan can say these things about Punk not being involved in the Colt Cabana mess that's going on right now. Several outlets are reporting the same thing, and clearly everybody knew. This is the thing. Everybody knew, unless CM Punk and Colt Cabana had made up and were friends again, or at least on speaking terms, or were civil with each other, which clearly they're not, it was always going to be a problem when Punk signed with AEW. Everyone knew that. Everybody knew that. Now, that's not to say that CM Punk walked into Tony Khan's office and said, "Fire Colt Cabana," or "When his contract expires, don't pick it up, rah, rah, rah." I can't expect him to do that, but I can also imagine Tony Khan thinking, maybe it's just not worth the hassle. And I'm sure people did go to bat for Colt Cabana, because there are a lot of people backstage that like Colt Cabana. He's a well-liked guy. And then maybe Tony Khan thought, actually, the plan eventually is to have the Ring of Honor roster and the AEW roster largely separate. They're going to be running separate shows and separate events and separate televisions. I'll put them on a Ring of Honor contract, and they're never going to be, crossing each other anyway. The problem is that separation between AEW and Ring of Honor really hasn't happened yet. And I'm sure eventually it will, and that's what Khan hopes eventually will happen, but it doesn't look to be happening in the near future. So I don't know. I think Tony Khan's trying to do a bit of positive PR there. Now, he was also asked during the media call he had about the AEW Rampage ratings. Now, a reporter noted that Rampage, which averaged a 0.24 rating in January, was down to a 0.14 average in August. Now, Khan responded by pointing to data that placed Rampage as one of the top 2 cable television shows for the past 13 consecutive weeks, adding that the program was top rated for either 9 or 10 of those weeks. Khan also acknowledged that AEW Dynamite was AEW's flagship show thanks to its really strong ratings, and he admitted that Dynamite's strength recently came at the expense of Rampage. Quote, "A lot of the biggest stars in AEW have been out," Khan said, noting that Kenny Omega, Adam Cole, CM Punk, and Bryan Danielson had been out with injuries. "These are all people that have had some of the highest rated and most important matches in the history of Rampage." Khan added that left only a few remaining top stars. "I really had to put them on Dynamite every single week, and almost every week in, week out, you could count on seeing Moxley and Jericho and the people who were in AEW on a weekly basis. With Omega, Punk, and Danielson having now returned, Khan pledged that AEW is now at a point that the reinvigorated roster can help Rampage revive its ratings mojo. Quote, "I think this Friday on the live Rampage, hopefully it'll be a preview of what's in store. We'll have the roster in a way I always wanted it to be." Tony Khan can say that about Rampage. It's got nothing to do with the roster. I mean, maybe having a Punk wrestle on there, or a Danielson on there wrestling, or a Kenny Omega might help things a little bit. But the reason Rampage's ratings suck is because most weeks it's not live. It's a tape show. People know the results 48 hours prior, because this is 2022. Spoilers live on social media because everyone lives on social media, so they know there's no real reason to tune in for the show because it's not live. It's in a bad time slot. It's at 10 p.m. to 11 p.m. right after SmackDown. People have had their wrestling fix for the evening. And on top of that, there's no real reason to watch it. If you miss Rampage most weeks, you don't miss anything. You really don't. And then if you do miss it, they just cover it on Dynamite anyway, or you can find the highlights on social media. Nowadays, to get people to tune into any show, you have to give them a real good reason to watch. They won't watch habitually anymore. And Rampage is just not important. That is why. When you look at Rampage, the first few episodes of it, the ratings were high, yes, because it was a new show, but also they gave reasons to watch. That debut episode, yes, it was the debut episode, but also it was live. It had a World Championship match between Christian Cage and Kenny Omega for the Impact World Championship. It had, the following couple of weeks later, it had Punk's first stunt. It felt like an important show. It doesn't feel like an important show now, and that's the issue of Rampage. And finally, he was also asked about Thunder Rosa. Obviously, when she announced her injury and that she was not going to be able to compete All Out, CM Punk, in comparison, had about 8 minutes to cut a promo in person. Thunder Rosa was given less than a minute backstage, essentially asking why was the females given less time than CM Punk. And he said, quote, "I give the TV time based on what I believe is going to draw the most ratings. If you want my honest opinion on an 8-minute Thunder Rosa promo versus an 8-minute CM Punk promo, then you're going to get an honest answer. And I think the 8-minute CM Punk promo is probably going to do a better rating. To come out and do a live 8-minute promo, I'm not sure that would have been good for the television show, to be honest with you." Now, it must be said, he's not wrong there, Tony Khan, with what he said. He's not wrong. I mean, CM Punk doing an 8-minute promo live is going to get a better rating than Thunder Rosa doing an 8-minute promo. But the reason it's going to get a better rating is because CM Punk, we have been conditioned to care about him or give a shit about him for 15, 20 years at this point. Thunder Rosa or any of the AEW females, we haven't been given a reason to care because they're not put on television. Sometimes you have to sacrifice ratings. Sometimes you have to sacrifice viewership to build up talent, to build up stars. If you only give talent 1 minute, or if you only give talent one segment or one match per show, and when I say talent, I mean literally an entire division, it's not going to draw ratings because you're subconsciously telling the audience, these people don't matter. This division doesn't matter. This is filler. We're just putting the woman out there because we have to. No, you have to give them main events. You have to give them multiple segments. You have to give them time in the ring to cut promos. That's how you build stars, and that's how you get to a point in 6, 9, 12 months time when they do that 8-minute promo in the ring. It draws a rating because we've been conditioned to care and invest at that point. And I can't wrap my head around why Tony Khan doesn't understand that. I think it's bizarre. Ace Steele this past week on Dynamite dropped an F-bomb in his fantastic promo, it must be said, with CM Punk. As I mentioned, he accidentally let the F word slip out on national television without a censor. Now, according to a new report from PW Insider, this did have a ripple effect backstage. Steele immediately took responsibility for the error and paid a subsequent fine, which was then donated to a charity. An email was also sent out this week discussing a number of points the higher-ups wanted to address. One, to be careful to avoid using expletives on television. Through the communication Thursday, they pointed out how Steele handled the mistake and wanted to be used as an example of how to deal with errors and accept responsibility for them when they accidentally occur. And yeah, obviously, everyone noticed it at the time. I went, whoa, he swore, or he shouldn't have. And it came again after the week of maybe you should tone down the language from Warner Media Discovery, which again I think was misinterpreted, it must be said. Basically what they said to people at that talent meeting was, don't curse, use the F word on national television, and then a producer accidentally did it. They're not going to get kicked off the air. Maybe they might get fined, or maybe they might get a warning, but sometimes these mistakes happen. I thought the promo was great, and again, maybe it's a good example of make sure this doesn't happen in the future. So I don't really see it being a huge deal. It's cable as well. Finally, W. Morrissey, of course, returned to AEW this past week, and we have an update when it comes to his future with AEW, and it wasn't just a one-off appearance. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful Select is reporting that Morrissey is currently scheduled to appear on next week's edition of Dynamite, which of course is taking place in Buffalo, New York. No other appearances or details on Morrissey's potential contract with AEW were revealed. It should be noted that Morrissey is a native of Queens, New York, and his reappearance in AEW comes just weeks before the promotion is set to return to Queens as they'll run the second edition of AEW Grand Slam from Arthur Ashe Stadium. So I would think that we're probably going to see a couple of more appearances, and then Tony Khan's going to do the W. Morrissey as All Elite. We don't know if he signed a contract, but he's in AEW going forward, certainly. But there you go, guys. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on today's AEW news stories in the comment section below, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.